Welcome. This is Morten from INKISH TV. I am talking to a guy that I think it's the first time we meet each other, but I hope it's not the last time, because I actually like both what you do, and I also like how you have supported what we do, and that's always like it's a good starting point, right? So David, welcome to INKISH.
Thank you, Morten. It's just a pleasure to be here.
Where are you located? I can't remember.
We are in New York, and so right now it's 9 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, it's not too early then, right? Because I could have dragged you out of bed like 7 o'clock or something like that, but I didn't. And you are...
I can see behind you that it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's good way to know.
Precisely, yeah. And David, you are, I guess you're the founder of SpencerMetrics, right? So why don't you tell us a little bit about you, yourself, your company, and what you do?
Sure. Well, SpencerMetrics is almost 10 years old. And it's actually the spin out of another company we were doing, which is a test laboratory for the printing industry, where we were servicing Hewlett-Packard and Canon and all of the players in the print industry, helping them with understanding their products and launches and stuff like that. And one of the things that happened...
Sorry to interrupt you. So when you say that, is that from a technical perspective where you're kind of testing equipment that was in the market or just about to go to market?
About to go, mostly. And giving them an understanding of the marketing perspective of the technology. So my background is that of an engineer and computer scientist way back when. I'm an MIT kind of guy, so I can't not think that way. They force it on you, sort of. We were working in the industry for many years, so I have the two sides of me always work together fairly well.
And that was about 10 years ago, or how long time ago is this?
Well, the test lab's actually in its third decade. We got started in 1989.
Wow.
So it's been around for quite a while. But it was 10 years ago that we got asked by one of our customers, actually it was Xerox, to do an in-the-field comparison of their equipment against some other equipment in terms of real-life productivity. And 10 years ago, that was quite an interesting challenge to go figure out how to do it. But once we did, we realized that there was a big gap in terms of the productivity caused by how people use the machines. So although Xerox wanted us to know about their machine, it was actually that their machine and the others, nobody was using them at full capacity. And so we started to look at the question of what was the downtime, what was going on, was it necessary or not? And a lot of it was not necessary. And we talked to we actually went into real customers and ran stuff for a long time to get the data. And we talked to customers about what we found, and they said the companies that had allowed us to use their equipment, et cetera, and their staff, we had them run it themselves, but we monitored everything. And we basically showed them where they were having downtime and asked them if they knew about that. And they said, we knew we had downtime, we didn't understand why and where.
And is that like when you talk about downtime, that is when there's a fault on the machine, or is it like when you have a changeover on the machine, or is it maintenance? So that was the combination of all these different things that you could basically measure each of the downtimes for the reasons why it had a downtime, or how was it in reality?
Well, the interesting thing was that in addition to the standard downtimes that you might expect that were necessary, there was a lot of unnecessary things, like the paper wasn't ready when it was supposed to be, that nobody was around to empty the cart that had the printed material, and so it sat there and you couldn't run the press because the cart wasn't available. So there were lots of times in which the workflow didn't happen the way it was supposed to, and people had to sit around and be unproductive without a reason. But nobody knew about it because typically it would be a few minutes here and a few minutes there. And that didn't necessarily raise a clear flag, and it was also the operators that knew it, and they didn't have a clear path to management to explain what was going on, for lots of reasons. And so what we did was we went into quad graphics to get experience in really doing it. And after a couple of years of doing that, we really understood what had to be done and developed software and realized a whole bunch of things that were really important. Like we had
sorry to interrupt you. So that software, is that what led to SpencerMetrics, or
yes.
Or was it still part of the test lab thing? Or
the test lab showed us the problem, and once we saw the problem, we bottom line said, hey, we are going to have to do this, and you can't do it manually. You have to develop software to do it. And the software initially...
That is essentially what SpencerMetrics does today?
Yes. So in 2013, we started doing that. In 2015, we had enough experience to realize what we hadn't done the first time, and we redesigned the software with all of the
typically, right? That's what often happens, right? That you get the experience of what you don't know, and then you basically get it into working environment, right?
Exactly. And so one of the things we learned is that we had to connect digitally to the digital machines as much as we could. And we started on digital as a way to do that, because the effort of getting data is a real big problem, and the accuracy is at issue, and the time that people spend doing it, and basically from the time they get data till they write it down till they take it to some other place and put it into some system, MIS or ERP or whatever, the losses are very high in terms of not just time but also accuracy. And people drop.
And how difficult is it? I mean, because when you look at today's machines, they have on the offset machines you have SIP4. On more and more digital machines, you have IoT and sensors and a lot of things that you can read out of the machines. But I take that in 2013, the time was different compared to today.
Absolutely. So we started doing the digital in 2015, and we have spent the last 8 years in figuring out how to work with each of these different protocols, because they're all different, and there's different flavors of what you think is a common protocol. And after we did this with the digital machines, we realized we had to go into the finishing side and et cetera. And so that required using sensors, intelligent sensors, computerized systems, edge computing, all of the not standard, but all of the new technologies that in the IoT world we had to integrate. And we had requests from customers to do the downstream, not just the printing side of it. So we learned how to instrument all of the machines that were, I guess I call them legacy machines. And so we have some Heidelberg presses from the 1990s that are on the system. And as far as the system's concerned now, they are digital, and the way that they are operating, we're recording everything that they do. Instrumentation has become really good, and of course we've learned how to do it.
I take that when you now have both got into how you get the data out of the machines. I take that you have now such a wealth of data, so now it's also a matter of how you filter it and turn it into. I take that you want to turn the data into some kind of actionable actions that you do in order to optimize your production based on the data you get, right?
Absolutely. So there's a couple things that we realized had to be done. We have to normalize the data, because when you're dealing with different presses from different manufacturers, they have different definitions of even simple things like I'm stopped. So we had to come up with does stopped mean that you're ready to go, or does stop mean that your power is, there's just lots of different definitions of things. So we had to normalize data so that you could understand it simply and once you understood how to interpret things, it was done, and no matter what, if you changed your equipment, everything was basically the same. And the other thing we realized is that in order to understand downtime, we must have operator knowledge shared with us. And that was a challenge. We actually spent 3 years in monitoring operators and seeing what they did, how they did it, and what were the issues that they had, and how do we help them without being Big Brother. Very important part of it. So, what we wound up doing. Go ahead.
So yeah, I was just wondering, David, because I mean, I understand the fact that you say that you take the digital communication in the machine to understand the productivity of the machine and all the things you can have. I can also understand how important it is to get the operators involved in it, because is it a human error or is it a machine error? Is it a workflow error? I mean, there can be so many different aspects of what makes a machine working or not working. So I can understand that part of it. And I was just curious when you talk about the human side to it, because you say you don't want to act as a big brother by monitoring every little move they do. And at the same time, you also want to encourage some kind of own initiative to actually give some kind of reporting that makes sense for each and everybody involved. Or how do you do that?
Exactly the right question. So what we did was we looked at the question of how much could you automate of what the operator is doing? How much can you unload the operator from the tasks that are not fun, that are in fact not contributing? And what we realized is that by tapping into the machine that was running, we could get a lot of information. We could know exactly when a downtime started and when it was over and how long it took and where in the sequence of things it was happening. All of that was actually could be automated. And if we had the operator sign in just once, we could remember who the operator was, and we could give them a personal tablet, so that, or some kind of a screen, so that they didn't have to keep doing things, the same thing over and over again administratively. And then the other thing we realized is that they were really busy during that downtime trying to fix whatever the problem was. So we had to develop software that could document everything that we did know, and then go on and wait until there was a time that the machine was running well, the operator had a few seconds, and make it really easy for the operator to go back and basically highlight, hey, there was a downtime, here's when it happened, etc. But just give them a couple of soft touch buttons on a screen and touch these buttons, and in a few seconds tell us what happened during that downtime. And that was a big key to things.
Yeah. So a question, David, when I hear you, it sounds like data that is essential to optimize the production. At the same time, it also sounds like something where maybe the OEMs should have known this by themselves. I mean, but I think that they want to sell machines, and the owners, they want to make them more productive. Is there kind of a different kind of perspective on what is important from an OEM and from a PSP in this perspective, or how does that fit into each other?
Well, the manufacturers really would like to have the operators perform as well as they can. So everybody's kind of on the same side of this. Okay, in fact, we've worked for some manufacturers where they've used our system to understand on a fresh install the training side of things, and where is a problem that appears to be with the machine actually because somebody doesn't yet know how to operate it properly. So we've learned a lot that a lot of downtime relates to training issues, and highlighting that helps everybody. And the operators feel much better when they can perform, and the manufacturers feel better when the machine is being used.
And with the tablet where you said that you had some soft buttons that was like kind of personalized, so that was kind of an extended UI to operate the machine to basically bypass the human errors, right?
As much as we could. And then another thing we realized is that we should give feedback to the operator so that they can see pretty much in real time how they've been performing, and when is the problem there that they didn't do something, but mostly when is the problem the machine is down or that there's a workflow issue or something. So give them a screen that's showing them in real time how things are progressing. And that turns out to be really nice from the point of view of it's not Big Brother, because anybody walking by can see that the reason that they happen to be a little slow today is not their fault. It's something else happened, and it's right up there on the screen. So it really relieved the pressure, if you will, of worrying about things, and it just showed how things were going. The other thing it did it's set up a games kind of mentality for the
I was
operators.
just about to ask you if you use gamification, because I mean it looked like to me that okay, you have some kind of scoreboard, or you have something of improving your own skills is always something that most people find also in a good way to challenge each other, right?
Exactly. We were pleasantly surprised to find out that operator morale went up when we installed the system. They liked doing their jobs more, were more productive without anything being changed except asking them to use the system, which was a very pleasant surprise instead of the opposite of what some people feared.
So, David, fascinating story, fascinating product, and fascinating to understand what both the human side and the profitability side of using your equipment more. Um, in and maybe I'm wrong, but I would assume that in today's world, more of these data is given more or less out of the box. Is that a wrong anticipation, or is that true?
Um, More and more data is available, but it's still way less than half of what's out there. There's lots of machines that do not communicate, and even with all the work that we've done to figure out every different protocol, we still have to do an awful lot of intelligent sensor work, especially as we get into finishing and packaging, which is another area that we've realized is people need our kind of technology.
So it's to answer this question is like, okay, data might be available, but what SpencerMetrics does is basically kind of sorting it to what is important to understand both the human side of an operation and also the technical side of an operation. Can that be kind of summed into that, or?
Absolutely. You're right on, Morten. So the issues become turning data into information. And a phrase that we use is operational insight. We want to give management the insight into the operation so that they can see what's happening, so that they can see what machine is actually not performing as well as its brothers and sisters, as well as you expect the machine to be performing, what operators need more training, and where is there a workflow problem. So all three of those issues we need to be able to, if you will, isolate or at least give information that allows the insight to see in the operation where the issues might be and what can be done to improve them.
One of the things I was just thinking about right now when I hear you, a lot of people and a lot of printing companies talk about workflow automation, and you see a lot of different software vendors enabling a higher level of automation from web to print solutions to workflow solutions to proofing to everything like that. The data and the knowledge that you gain from using SpencerMetrics, does that go into some kind of collaboration with the workflow software? I mean, the reason I'm asking is just because, I mean, if you, let's say that you have a huge printing company with many digital presses, and as you say, you want to basically offload work to a machine, your system knows if there's a downtime. You probably can measure how long time it is anticipated. Is it operator dependent? Is it a technical issue? I mean, so I was just thinking maybe there's a logic to it, could, or maybe it already do, collaborate with the workflow software, or where am I wrong here?
Well, today's technology is that we can tell people what's actually happening. We can give them real-time feedback, and then that has to go back into some connection loop back to the planning side to make changes if necessary. Sometimes it is just training. Sometimes it is just that it's time for service. We do monitor the quality issues. We monitor how frequently machines are needing service, et cetera. So we have feedback in all of those kinds of levels to make the overall operation run more smoothly.
So maybe I didn't understand you 100% because I'm not English, but so does it mean that there is a kind of relationship between the workflow system and SpencerMetric, or is it more like one thing is understanding your operation and the other thing is automating your operation, or how does it work?
We're really not doing an electronic feedback. We are telling people how it's happening And
Okay.
so we're leaving there's a limit to sort of how far one should go, I think, in automation. And there needs to be
Mm.
some level of intelligence by management in terms of how you're putting two and two together. But we can tell you
Okay.
what's really happening.
Yeah. And
And
that is, of
we can
course,
tell you
important,
where it's
Leo.
not happening where you thought it should be
Yeah.
and point out things that you could do to fix it. But we have some rules that say we will never stop a machine from producing output. We will always monitor it.
Mm.
So it's a line that we draw. We're providing information, but we're not controlling.
Mm. Okay, but that also makes sense, because I think that what you have been talking about here is basically that by identifying any kind of bottleneck, whether it's people related or technical related, it is down to the production management to basically, or the top management to basically sort out. I mean, education cannot be done by workflow automation, right? So basically, you need to have the right skills for educating people and have the relationship with the OEMs as well. So let's move a little bit ahead. I think it's really interesting, and I will stop by at your booth at Innovation Days, because I want to learn more about your software. When you go to Switzerland and go to Lucerne to talk to customers and potential customers, obviously you will tell them some of the things that we've been talking about here today, and you will maybe also show some of the results out of your measurings and things like that. But is it difficult to convince people the value of what you sell?
One of the things just that you touched on as you were asking the question is that at Hunkeler, we're going to actually be live with Hunkeler's equipment. So we'll actually be monitoring it between the two halls. So we can actually show them what the equipment is doing in real time. So, excuse me for interrupting sort of halfway through your question, but please repeat the back part of it, which is I think it's easy for people to intellectually see that there is a high return on investment. We actually have come up with some spreadsheets that just allow you to plug in your numbers. And typically it comes out 10 or 20 to 1 return on investment, because you're dealing with these like $1 million devices, and they are producing more than that per year. And if you just improve it by 1% or 2% or anything small like that, that just so much more than covers the cost of software, which isn't particularly expensive. So the return on investment is tremendous. The issue still is you have to make an investment from a capital budget or an operating budget. You have to make an investment in order and have the confidence that you're going to actually be able to get the return. And that takes people an emotional step, if you will, beyond. They can see it, but they still have to take that step. And everybody's got pressure on what budgets are going to be used for. And just because this is an investment versus an expense, it's still hard. And it takes time for people to say, you know what, I'm losing a lot of money on things I can't control. Let me go and get that control so I know what I'm doing. And that's when they actually take the steps. So we do have customers that make a decision in a month or two, and we have customers that make the decision in years. It's been a very interesting thing.
Are people afraid of being kind of exposed to, let's say that they think that they have a fantastic operation, and now they get the metrics that actually prove them wrong?
I don't see the fear of that very much. What I do see is just that they are so busy putting out fires or dealing with the current problems that being able to actually put in something that's going to make their job easier in the future is very hard to do today.
Yeah.
Even
And
if
that is
that
always
future is
like,
very soon.
yeah. And that is like when I think that all of us have experienced that with staffing problems and with higher pressure on returns and faster turnaround times. It's always like sometimes the fires that are closest to you are the ones that you try to put out first, right? So I take that is what you're talking about here, is that people understand, as you say, intellectually what they see and understand the value of what you offer, but from from understanding to making the actual purchase is the next step. Last question here, David. How difficult is it when let's say that now let's say I operate a printing company with 5 different presses from 3 different manufacturers, and I would like to get involved with SpencerMetrics. Is it difficult to get it up and running and install it and get the data that can help my business?
Not anymore. We really have gotten that down, as they say, to a science. We can do it, in most cases, we can do it as a remote installation. We've installed in Australia. We've installed all over the world, if you will. So we know how to do that. We usually work closely with the customer. We can have things operational sometimes in weeks, usually in just a couple of months. Everything is operational. It's not like putting in an MIS system. It's a lot easier. And that includes time where we can configure it specifically for the customer.
So basically, it's you can do it remotely. It's not something that influences production too much. You can basically do it without interfering and having any downtimes. The ROI seems to be a fast and simple calculation. At Hunkeler, you will show it in a live environment, so people can basically go and see the equipment running in one hall, and they can go and see the measures in the next hall. So I think there's a lot of good reasons to come to Hunkeler and visit you guys, right?
We hope to see a lot of people there. We'll probably expect to see over 5,000 of our closest friends there. It's a great show, and we're really looking forward to it. What we do, I'll just mention that what we do does apply across many, many different market segments and many different sizes of companies, because we are structured so that we can handle a company with 2 presses and a company with 200 without a problem.
That must be nice. David Spencer, thank you very much for your time here on INKISH. I really appreciate to get more insight in what sounds like a fantastic piece of software and a lot of work that has gone into it. And soon I will see you in Lucerne. I look forward to meet you in person and to check out the software. So thank you very much, sir.
Morten, thank you so much for doing this, for the time. And looks like Lucerne is something I always look forward to. So until then.
Great. Till then.